What's good, y'all? It's your boy Sean P. the Blunt Guy. Hey! And we are back with another One Piece reaction. And today we will be reacting to my man's Elids. And and the title of this video is Lucci taught Luffy how to awaken gear 4th and 5th. So this is pretty much based on One Piece chapter 1069. So as of today, the most recent chapter is 1071. So this reaction came a little late, but it is what it is because we talking about awakenings. I don't think we've gotten any additional awakening content since 1069. So we good. But before we get into the video, make sure you guys hit that like button. Also subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. Also comment down below your thoughts. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? What did I miss? Let me know down in the comments. Follow me on Twitch so you can engage with me in real time as I do these reactions. Let me know how you feel in real time. Also follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook if you want to contact me or get at me directly, and join the Discord, which is even a better place to get at me directly because I'm usually more active in the Discord. And you can also send me content to react to in the Discord. And if you want to be a part of a future One Piece discussion stream, or just like when I do chill streams and you just want to come and chat with me, you got to be a member of the Discord. Well, yes, let's get into this video. All right, so again, this video is from Elids, and the title of this video is Lucci taught Luffy how to awaken gear 4th and 5th. One Piece chapter 1069. Now, I know a lot of y'all might be kind of like how I am right now. How did Rob Lucci teach Monkey D. Luffy how to use or how to awaken gear 4th and 5th? When you might be thinking, well, isn't gear 5th awakening? Didn't Luffy unlock or awaken his devil fruit with gear 5th before confronting Rob Lucci? If those are the questions in your mind, then we are on the same page. Because I don't know what Elids' angle is. I guess the only thing I can really think of is maybe his theory is that gear 5th, the gear 5th that we seen against Kaido, isn't an awakening. Now y'all gonna have to let me know what y'all think about that, because I'm pretty sure gear 5th is an awakening. I don't know. I don't think it was ever confirmed to be an awakening, but still, nonetheless, I would think it was still an awakening. It showed some very unique characteristics that might be more related to what we know of to be awakenings, right? Like the ability to affect the environment, especially when we look at guys like Katakuri, Doflamingo, right? Like Doflamingo was able to turn buildings and stuff into strings. Katakuri was able to turn the mirror world, the ceilings and the walls into like mochi like blobs. So they pretty much affected the environment and things outside of their own selves, right? What we seen with Luffy is he was able to rubberize his environment, right? Or even other living things like Kaido, like we see him rubberize those tubes that were at Egghead Island, I guess, used for transportation. He used it as like a wrestling ring rope. We also seen him in I want to say in Wano. There was Kaido tried to do a blast breath to Luffy, and Luffy was able to grab the ground and then like kind of use it as a slingshot to sling the attack back at Kaido. So I would think that Gear 5th is indeed an awakening. So I don't understand how, like, where Elis is going to go with this, you know, because he's saying Lucci taught Luffy about awakening. So that, to me, that can only be that Luffy's Gear 5th isn't a real awakening. And seeing this is going to inspire Luffy to actually do a real awakening. So I'm gonna let Elis talk, but I do got to put that out there because I'm pretty sure, like me, a lot of you are probably thinking like, how did Rob Lucci teach Luffy awakening when Luffy already awakened his devil fruit before meeting Rob Lucci? So, you know, there's that. But yeah, let's get into this video. The link to this video will also be in the description box.
Video is about how I believe Luffy's encounter. Today's video is about how I believe Luffy's encounter with the Cypher Pull agents, and most specifically Rob Lucci, inspired not only Gear 2nd and 3rd, but 4th and 5th as well. Now, if you follow my channel, you might have been expecting.
Okay. So I think I think I'm kind of cleared up on, I guess, his thought process. So he's talking about like Lucci's and Luffy's first encounter. He's not talking about the most recent encounter with, at least this is what I'm assuming. I don't think when he says Rob Lucci taught Luffy how to awaken his devil fruit, I think he means with their first encounter back in Ennis Lobby in Water 7, like during that arc. So I'm assuming that is what might have inspired Luffy to eventually awaken his devil fruit. That's what I'm assuming. I thought he meant like Rob Lucci, the form that we seen with Rob Lucci with the cloud over him. I thought he was saying like Rob Lucci in his awakened form inspired Luffy to awaken his devil fruit. So I think that's the speculation. So let's continue.
His video to be more about Rob Lucci, why he awakened his devil fruit, and why Kaido seemingly didn't awaken his devil fruit. Well, that video is still in the works. Unfortunately, I couldn't get it out today because I just keep on adding more and more detail into it. So it's just turning out to be an even better video than expected, but we gotta wait longer. Anyway, today's video is actually about a topic I introduced over 2 years ago in my video, Why Rokushiki is and Always Has Been Haki, in which I go to show how...
Speaking of Rokushiki being haki, there was the not a current episode, but it was the episode where Jinbei fights Who's Who, and Who's Who uses Iron Body, and it blackens his skin, similar to how Armament Haki blackens one's skin, right? Like before, back in this, when we was first introduced to Rokushiki and Iron Body and everything, that was never the case. Their bodies never turned black. You know what I mean? So I personally think that might have been the anime's way of somewhat confirming that Rokushiki is indeed haki. You know, so yeah, definitely Elis. I think the anime has been trying to confirm that Rokushiki is haki. I would assume maybe Oda wanted the anime to do that as well. So maybe this might have been, I mean, maybe the anime team just took it upon themselves, but maybe Oda wanted this. Because I personally believe, you know, I know a lot of people got a problem with Wano adding stuff, but I personally think that the manga Oda has intentionally been leaving stuff out of the manga to allow the anime to fill those spots. You know, so the anime has been giving us filler, but I think a lot of the filler the anime has been giving us is most likely canon filler because I feel as though in the manga, Oda left out a lot of stuff where he like glossed over some stuff. Some of the fights we got like some missing pieces, and it's like, why, right? So I think that was Oda's way of allowing the anime to fill in a lot of those spots. So then it makes people want to go watch the anime a lot more. So that's why I recommend anybody to watch the anime, at least for the Wano arc, because it's been great as well. It's been great.
The abilities Luffy uses in Gear 4 that are armament related are eerily similar to Rokushiki, and how that connection is proof that goes to show that Rokushiki and Haki are one and the same. I even went as far as to suggest that perhaps Luffy watching Lucci change forms throughout battle is what inspired him eventually down the line to create Gear 4. Now, this theory is great and all,
But I would challenge that. I would challenge that with this. Couldn't Chopper have accomplished the same thing? Right? Couldn't Chopper have accomplished inspiring Luffy? Right? Because if anything, I would say Chopper was the first. I would say Chopper being around Luffy a lot more, right? And Chopper being someone who can change forms and transform. I would say that Chopper might have inspired Luffy, because I would think that Lucci seen Chopper transform in more often first, and then maybe Rob Lucci kind of confirmed that. Like maybe after Luffy seeing Rob Lucci and like Chopper constantly transform, it would inspire him. But I wouldn't say Rob Lucci was the first person Luffy seen like transform in the middle of battle. So I would think you could probably make an argument for Chopper.
but I'm not here to rehash a theory that's already on my channel. What I wanted to show you is a theory that I actually uploaded to Reddit and never brought to this channel. The reason being because despite that theory being posted 9 months ago, it's more relevant now than ever. Essentially, that post was about how I believed the concept of life return and Rokushiki is what helped Luffy to awaken his devil fruit.
Yeah, we definitely talked about like well, I think it's called Jet Calverin or something. I think that's the attack where he goes Gear 4 and then he throws a punch, and then it's like a heat seeking missile where it could just follow. He could just follow his opponent and eventually punch him. I think me and Elitz had that conversation before about that possibly being a life return technique.
So first, I'll show you a clip from Rokushiki is and always has been Haki, just so you can get the gist of all of the moments where you can see Rokushiki in Luffy's gears. And I'll explain the relevance of that a little bit later. Then, once I'm done showing you that clip, I'll move on to the Reddit post, read that, and then, as I'm going along, giving you my updated take on that theory and how that relates to the most recent chapters. To start off this theory, let's address a blaringly obvious concern with CP9 and Haki. Why would the world government train elite warriors from childhood and not teach them Haki? Well, according to my theory, the answer to this is that they were teaching them Haki. It just wasn't under the name Haki. Off the first impression, it would seem that Haki and Rokushiki are not related. Haki is based on spiritual powers, and Rokushiki is about maximizing a human's physical capability. However, when you really look at what Rokushiki is capable of accomplishing, you'd realize that there are supernatural elements to it that go way beyond the suspense of disbelief. For example, those that master Kamiye are capable of freely moving their body as if they were as malleable as Play-Doh. Not even a rubber man like Luffy can do that under normal conditions. This changed for Luffy when he learned Haki.
I wonder if Kamiye or whatever it is similar to what we seen Monkey D. Luffy do in Skypiea, right? Like when Luffy fought Enel, there was the moment he used, what was this? I think it was dumb Luffy or stupid Luffy or something like that. He just kind of blanked his mind and went dumb, and then he was like just dodging attacks. Like he just kind of made his body go limp and started dodging attacks. So I don't know, I always wonder, cause it was almost like that I think the move is Kanye where they like loosen their body and then they're just kind of like paper where they're just dodging the text. There's one there. I know there's a move like that CP9 was they did. So I wonder if that's kind of similar to what Luffy did when he went dumb Luffy.
In order for Luffy to use Gear 4, he must have Haki. The question is why? Well, it's because Arm and Haki does more than just make Luffy's skin harder, which is similar to Tekkai. It allows him to freely move his body, like with Kamiya, and fly, like with Geppo. Basically, how I see Rokushiki is that it is like an incomplete version of Haki, which is something that already occurs in One Piece. Mantra is a concept that focuses just on observation Haki. However, the two are considered the same thing despite Mantra not covering all the bases that Haki does. Alright, before we start reading this Reddit, I want to preface by saying the very thing that spawned me to make this theory isn't even mentioned in the theory. This is because I wanted to make a post that was anime only friendly. Yet even now, 9 months later, they would still be spoiled because it hasn't been shown in the anime yet. What I'm referring to is when Gear 4th Snake Man Luffy was using Culverine against Kaido. Kaido made a comment about how it didn't make sense the way his arms would bend and have a trajectory that they have even for a rubber man. Another thing I want to address is why even bring up Gear 4th? Like, sure, there could be a theory there, but we're moving on to Gear 5th and Awakenings. Well, I do think Gear 4th is still relevant to the topic of Awakenings, because just look at the way Gear 4th is designed and compare it to Gear 5th. Like, it can't be a coincidence that his Gear 4th has fiery hair, has flame patterns, has that same sash of steam around. One could wonder, could Gear 4th be a hybrid? Maybe. I don't necessarily think that, but I have heard people speculate that. But one thing's for certain, it draws a comparison between Luffy and Lucci, because even without Gear 5th, you would still look at Lucci and think, isn't that similar to Gear 4th? Because the sash is just there and it just can't be anything random. Like, there's not a lot of coincidences in One Piece. Oda.
Yeah, Gear 5th had that sash, and then we had that one scene where he went Gear 4th, not Gear 5th, Gear 4th, where Hyogoro stated that he reminded him of the sun god, right? So Gear 4th is like a step closer to the sun god, the sun god Gear 5th. So, maybe more of an incomplete form, right? But because Gear 5th also isn't really reliant heavily on Haki like Gear 4th is. So Gear 4th might be more of a forced, I guess, awakening, where you're using your Haki to almost force an awakening. So, but not like a pseudo awakening, I guess you could say, because it is somewhat godly, right? Like we see that the devil fruit is a god fruit, a sun god fruit. So maybe Gear 4th is just a step closer, but it's more of a pseudo awakening where it's forced with the use of Haki, but it still isn't perfected yet. It's not Gear 5th perfected, I would probably say.
Is a very thorough writer. Enough of that. The theory will talk for itself and will explain the relevance of Gear 4th. So let's begin. Why Luffy can bend his arm like that, even as a rubber man, right? So with the first panel, we see Luffy say, "Keep chasing him, Python." That's a very notable thing that I'll bring up later. And you can see Doflamingo is just like, why? This time he's not shrinking. It's very odd that his arm keeps stretching and expanding. That's also very important. Keep that in mind. So this time I show what he used against Katakuri, which was Snake Man. And if you notice, each time his arm turns, there's like a air blast
Yeah.
associated with the turning of his arm.
Kind of like when you do skywalk, right? Where you like you kick off the air, which I think skywalk could probably be looked at as life return as well, because maybe no, because you're kicking off air, where life return you're actually just manipulating individual pieces of your body. But this specific move, Jet Calvary, I'm saying it could be a combination of life return, where he actually is able to control the things, but then he's also using life return to like bounce off the air, kind of like skywalk bounces off the air. That's kind of what I would think.
And once again, he's saying after him, Python. It's like he's speaking to his own arm. So I write, we have seen Culverine used in Bound Man and much more in Snake Man. The Gomu Gomu no Mi may be able to grant Luffy the ability to stretch like rubber, but it doesn't explain why his arm can bend. Nor does it doesn't explain why his arm keeps expanding instead of shrinking. So then I show Luffy using Soru and Geppo. The reason being is I just want to show, hey, it's not as if devil fruits are the only abilities that can be used by people, right? So Luffy can use other abilities that don't necessarily have to derive from his rubber powers. So I write, one thing not to forget is that there are other abilities in One Piece besides devil fruit. One in particular is Rokushiki, which is an ability that Luffy has emulated on more than one occasion. Sometimes it's been noted and obvious when Luffy copied Rokushiki, like the time he's fighting Blue Note, he just literally goes, oh wow, he's using one of our techniques. However, there's been other times that were subtle and not really pointed out. For example, Luffy used a move that is pretty much the same one that Kaku used. So I ask, is Kaku rubber? Obviously.
I've never peeped that. I do remember Kaku doing that in that fight against Zoro. He retracted his neck and then he shot it out as like a attack. And I kind of forgot Luffy doing that move where he like brings in his head. It makes sense for Luffy, right? Because he's rubber, so it makes sense he could like kind of pull in his head and shoot it out. Kaku, on the other hand, like I could see Rokushiki kind of being why Kaku was able to do it, even though I think Luffy, it makes actual sense and according with his ability. So to me, it's kind of a tough comparison. I get the comparison, but Luffy being rubber, it makes sense that he can do that. Kaku might be more of an underlying thing with Rokushiki. But yeah, but it is it is kind of similar. So I could see Luffy gaining some level of influence from CP9, even though Luffy didn't see Kaku do this. So I don't know how he would have been influenced by Kaku doing this, but still, right? Still.
Obviously not. We shouldn't be so surprised when Luffy does something as simple as bend his arm. The ability that Luffy could be emulating to use Culverine may not actually be one of the 6 powers, but rather an ability related to Rokushiki. This would be Life Return. Now let's read how Life Return is described by Kumodori and Chopper. In nature, from the hair on one's head, from one's vital organs, to the tip of one's toes, even to the ends of one's short hairs, there is not a single spot that cannot be controlled with one's consciousness. So Chopper says, you can consciously control every part of your body, even your hair? I read about something like this in a book. It's called biofeedback or something. I write, while it is true that Luffy hasn't encountered Kumodori, he did witness Lucci use Life Return and the Boa sisters use a technique that is eerily similar to Life Return. In fact, he may have named Culverine and Snake Man after the Boa sisters. Notice how
that is interesting that Snake Man, which we seen use Culverine. Well, Gear 4th did as well, but there one attack, especially with Snake Man, seeing how the Boa sisters all are like snakes. So I could see Luffy being inspired when it came to Gear Fourth in general, but especially Snake, man. I could see how he was inspired by the sisters, and especially when it comes to Jet Calvary, you know.
Lucci chastises Luffy over his lack of control of his own Devil Fruit ability. Then notice immediately after that, he uses Life Return paper art fighting form. It's almost as if he's bragging. He's showing, hey, you have no control over your body. Now look at this. I'm an expert at this. Luffy could have taken this to heart and realized that he too needed to be adaptable in battle. And then add that to the fact that him fighting the Boa sisters is what could have taught him that Life Return is a Haki ability. Thus, he could have made it his mission while learning Haki over the time skip that he would also want to learn Life Return as well. With that in mind, it shouldn't be too surprising that they seem to have similar awakenings, because they probably got there in a similar manner. So I write, I'm suggesting that Luffy could be controlling the bending of his arms with Life Return. However, that doesn't explain why it is that his arm keeps stretching and even accelerates in the case of Snake Man. It's one thing to bend your arm, it's a whole nother thing for the arm to just keep on ramping up speed. It literally goes against the laws of physics, especially when you're talking about rubber. So then I write, what if this has been the result of Luffy using Awakening? It could be the case that Luffy is turning the air into a rubber trampoline for his fist to bounce off of. This would be similar to the quirk of Gentle from My Hero Academia.
That makes a bit of sense, right? Like with Calvary, like I was talking about how it bounces off the air, and I looked at it as more of kind of like Skywalk that we see Skywalk that Sanji uses and all the other CP agents when they're like walking on the sky, or it's like they're skipping in the sky because they're like kicking off the sky and then bouncing, right? So I was thinking like what Luffy was doing when it comes to like how he uses Jet Calvary and then he bends and it looked like it's like bouncing off the air, kind of like Skywalk. That's what I was thinking, but it being more of an awakening thing, I mean, that could be the case as well. But we've also seen Gear 4 when he's like flying and he's like using his legs is like propulsion, right? It's kind of like bouncing off the air as well. Similar, you know.
Academia. So I'm essentially suggesting that Luffy has been subconsciously using Awakening this whole time without even realizing it. Back when I wrote this, we didn't know what Gear 5th would look like, or the fact that it was an awakening of a zone that Luffy was unaware of. But now it seems all the more validated that Luffy has been subconsciously using his Awakening because of the fact that Gear 4th already looks similar to Gear 5th. You might be wondering why it is that Life Return would even be relevant if Devil Fruit Awakening alone could produce the results necessary for Culverin to be possible. Well, we must wonder how it is Luffy could have learned to use Awakening in the first place. One thing to consider in hindsight now that we know of Nika's involvement in Luffy's power is the fact that maybe the reason his arm bends at a trajectory and picks up speed is because he imagines it to be so, right? He's using the power of imagination to go beyond what's in reality. One way or the other, he's using Awakening, so the point still stands.
It does make sense, right? It does make sense because Luffy, the thing about Luffy is he's always been very creative. You know, like back before we knew that the Gumu Gumu no Mi was really the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika. Before when we always called it the Gumu Gumu no Mi and we always assumed that's what it was, and we always looked at it as being a rubber devil fruit with rubber abilities, you know, like years ago, right? Like we still in the grand line and pre time skip, right? Back in those days, and even a little bit post time skip, up to the point where we learned it was really the Hito Hito Model Nika, right? Luffy has always been super creative with his devil fruit. Always. Like he's always done stuff that's just it's like you wouldn't even thought to have done that. Like back when he fought Crocodile, right? And then we see him go water Luffy, where he just takes in a bunch of water and now he's just like this big old blob of a Luffy, right? And then he uses that water to fight Crocodile. Or when he's like spin using his devil fruit to like spin around and then like kind of like fly or just like spin and then attack. Like he's always doing some just outlandish stuff that that I feel as though you give that devil fruit to anybody else, they might not have they may not have been that creative, but maybe because again, what we learned about the devil fruit is it gives you a level of freedom, like the Hito Hito no Mi Model Nika. It's like you could do almost anything you can imagine, and Luffy has always been doing that. Luffy has always been creating moves off like just he's always been pretty innovative with this devil fruit. He's always been doing stuff that you wouldn't even imagine. And I'm talking since the early part of the series. He's always been doing that. So has the devil fruit always given him this amount of freedom almost? So, like maybe his ability to do like so much random stuff is part of the devil fruit's will.
How did he even get to the point where he could use such an awakening ability in the first place? So then I bring up the time Doflamingo showed that awakening is the ability to use your devil fruit power externally outside of your body and even into other objects, such as the buildings around him. So then what I write is, what we can take away from seeing Doflamingo's use of awakening is that 1, it puts into question whether or not a devil fruit is paramecia. Viz writes paramethea. 2, that it allows the devil fruit use to extend their abilities outside of their body. Devil fruit awakening has never been just about granting power. Doflamingo doesn't simply just turn buildings into string. He can consciously control those strings. If a person learns to use life return, they are learning to have conscious control over their entire body. With devil fruit awakening, it is as if the user is imposing an internal power outward through willpower. If Luffy was initially using life return to perform covering, then perhaps If Luffy was initially using life return to perform covering, then perhaps that was the gateway to him learning awakening. Keep chasing him, Python. After him, Python. Notice how Luffy is seemingly giving his arm commands, as if it now has a will of its own. This is his version of life return. Through training himself to grant his arm a free will, he may have been also subconsciously learning how to give will to things outside of his body, thus effectively learning how to grant his devil fruit powers to his surroundings, aka devil fruit awakening.
So that makes me think, right? That kind of makes me think. He brought up a point that makes me think. I wonder, right? Do you need to have a level of life return in order to awaken your devil fruit? Or does devil fruit awakening give you a does it like grant you a level of life return? Because he brought up the fact that Doflamingo controls his strings and everything. He turns buildings into strings and then he controls them. You could say the same thing for Katakuri, right? When we know Katakuri uses awakening, he's able to turn the environment around him into like mochi blobs, and he can control it as well. So I'm thinking like, because when I see awakening, it's like you're achieving you're awakening your devil fruit. You're achieving a something internal where you it's like a level of self-awareness that you go through in order to have to awaken your devil fruit, right? So like that's why I would think like an awakening is like a blossoming, right? It's a blossoming. And I would think in order to blossom your powers like that, you life return might be one of those things you might have to know, right? Because I would think life return is like a step towards awakening because you're you're learning how to fully control your body. If you can fully control your body, I would think you could fully control your devil fruit ability, like to the max. So I would think in order to get to a point where you can fully control your devil fruit abilities, like you'll have full control of your devil. You could do like anything with your devil fruit abilities. I would think that you would have to also, before getting to that point, you would have to get to a level of mastery of your own body, which would grant you like life return. You know what I mean? So, you know, he brings up a point that I never really considered when it comes to awakening and life return. How life return and awakening could be very connected. Like you need to be able to use life return in order to get awakening because life return is the mastery of one's body and awakening is you need to have mastery of your body in order to awaken. You have to have mastery of your body and your devil fruit in order to awaken your devil fruit. Like that's kind of how I would see it. Like especially after he kind of pointed that out.
What's interesting is that Kumo Dory, the person who's shown to be the best at life return in the series, refers to himself as a hermit of nature. And we know that Devil Fruit Awakening is the power to affect your environment. Or if you have a Zone Devil Fruit, it's like getting in touch with an animal, which is also still getting in touch with nature. And if you've watched Naruto, there's this ability called Sage Mode. Well, Sage and a Hermit, pretty much the same thing. And in Sage Mode, you gather in power, and with that, you're able to affect your surroundings. It's sort of a similar concept. So, with Kumadori being the poster boy of life return, you could almost see it as a hermit ability. I write, the term awakening is heavily associated with spirituality, and the character most associated with life return is Kumadori. He is a self-proclaimed hermit. He and Luffy may seem unrelated to one another, but you can actually draw similarities between them. For starters, they are both associated with Shishi, or in other words, lion. Kumadori literally refers to himself as a lion, and Luffy's laugh is Shishishi. His ship is a lion, and Luffy has always been associated with the sun. Lions are frequent.
Yeah, I was about to say lions are usually associated with the sun as well because they have that mane. You know what I mean? The mane kind of gets associated with the sun a lot. A lot of times you'll see a lion depicted as a sun, right? Also, when you look at lions being the king of the jungle, right, being the top of the hierarchy in the wild, right? You look at you look at a god being the top of the hierarchy of life. You know what I mean? So lions get a lot of connection with suns and sometimes even like a god or something. I might be stretching with the god aspect, but yeah.
Depicted as an animal that represents the sun, hence why the Thousand Sunny is a lion. Another similarity between the two is their choice of weapon, right? Obviously, Kumadori has a staff. You might think that Luffy hasn't been one to wield a weapon, besides swords, when he wasn't being serious. However, when he was younger, he wielded a pipe alongside his brothers, which is similar to a staff. Lastly,
Sabo.
they both seem to have a Japanese inspiration in their abilities despite not being from Wano. You could argue that Luffy...
I would low key like to see Luffy bring back the pipe. You know what I mean? Like maybe if him and Sabo teamed up, right? Like maybe they both bring out like the pipes. Maybe if Sabo, I don't know if he could, like with his awakening, if he could use like a fiery pipe or something. I don't know if that's possible. So, but like Luffy rubberizing his pipe to kind of, be like made of rubber and being able to, bend and stuff like that. That'd be pretty dope. Hey, Oda, you gotta do that for me, man. Oda gotta give me a scene with Sabo and Luffy, especially given Sabo is still alive, right? Given Sabo still being alive, give me a scene where we get Luffy and Sabo teaming up with like Ace's spirit with him or something. Don't actually manifest Ace's spirit. I don't want nothing corny, but like kind of like when we got like Gohan doing the Kamehameha wave to Cell, and then you got like Goku's spirit there to kind of assist Gohan or whatever. Like maybe a moment like that might be a little dope. I'm just saying. But give me a moment where we got Ace or we got Sabo and Luffy with the pipes out, like they like bring back the throwback of how they were when they were kids, and they was teaming up with these pipes. You gotta do it, Oda. Give me a panel like that.
Having a Japanese influence doesn't mean much since it is a Japanese story, but there are two things you should consider. Zoro seems to have a Japanese influence, but that makes sense because Oda stated that if Zoro was in the real world, he would be from Japan. On the other hand, Luffy would be from Brazil. Secondly, Hirogoro, a Wano native, took notice of Gear 4th and seemed to recognize the design. The reason I bring up the similarities is because I think Kumadori could have foreshadowed Luffy's power progression. Inhaling the wind, swallowing the mist. I find this interesting because Luffy's gears do seem to have to involve wind and mist. Being isolated from human civilization is what it means to live as a hermit, and Kumadori replies that is what was required of him to learn and master Life Return. And interestingly enough, that was a big part of how Rayleigh trained Luffy. The fact that the term awakening is used towards a devil fruit implies that something is dormant. I don't think the word awakening refers to just the devil fruit user, but the fruit itself as well. To be more specific, the spirit that was once in the fruit and now in the body of the new user. The name Life Return is a reference to biofeedback, but if you take the name literally, it's as if life is being returned, life brought back. Kind of like if the dead came back to life. Death can be seen as a...
What happened in Wano? What happened in Wano during the Kaido versus Luffy fight? Kaido pretty much murdered Luffy in real time. He murdered him. That was a murder. Kaido needs to go to prison. But Kaido seemingly killed Luffy. Luffy's heart stopped, and then pretty much it returned. His heart returned. And one thing we know about hearts is like when your heart stops, you die, right? You die. So your life leaves. So if your life returns, your heart starts pumping again, which is pretty much what happened to Luffy after Kaido seemingly killed him, and we hear Luffy's heart eventually stop, and then his life returned, and then it started doing the drums of liberation almost. Y'all know it. Y'all know how it go.
A form of sleep. To come back to life is an awakening. That is super relevant. I wrote this before chapter 1044 came out, where it was almost seemed like Luffy was dead and came back to life. But yeah, that's my reasoning for why I believe Life Return is relevant to the awakening of Luffy and Lucci. One thing I want to point out is Kaido's reaction to Luffy's arm bending, which is super weird because Kaido should definitely have decades of world experience and should have met many Rokushiki users over that time. In fact, Who's Who is in his crew and has a Rokushiki. So the fact that he was surprised that Luffy's arm can bend like that doesn't really make sense. Especially when you factor in...
But the thing is, could who's who do life return? You know what I'm saying? Like maybe life return isn't that common of a technique, right? But I would think it might have because Kaido kind of did something similar. So I would so Kaido does is familiar with Rokushiki at the very least because he was able to do something similar to Luffy's Jet Calverin, right? If I remember correctly. Yeah, I think this is the scene he does it. So yeah, Kaido is aware of life return, or I would think.
He himself copied Luffy when he used his stealthy drunk or whatever it was called. Now, there's two things to factor in. One, even though he was copying the bending of Luffy, maybe he wasn't necessarily copying the acceleration, which you need rubber powers to do that. And two, if he somehow did copy that, I think it has to do with the fact that he's a dragon, and I think dragons were the ones who originally come up with the powers devil fruits are based off of. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed that. New, not a new theory, but it's new to YouTube at least. And look forward to my next theory, which is gonna be so detailed, so good. You're truly gonna understand Zone Devil Fruit Awakenings and Devil Fruit Awakenings in general, because I'm gonna come with so many receipts, so much evidence to show this is why this is this way, this is why that is that way. talking super I'm talking super vague on purpose, but you'll just have to wait and see. Thank you for tuning in.
All right, shout out to Eliz. Make sure you go give the boy a like. I don't know. Uh, yeah. So it kind of sounds like Eliz is kind of saying like you. I don't know. You know, maybe I'm kind of interpreting my own way, but I kind of feel as though life return is important to awakening. I feel as though he was making a big connection between awakening and life return. But thinking about it, it does make a lot of sense. It does make a lot of sense because awakening, when I look at awakening, especially like a devil fruit awakening, I'm looking at like you're waking up your devil fruit to use it at its full potential, right? To use it as its full potential. When I think of life return, I'm thinking of, first off, you could use if you just take the word life return, you look at it like your life is returning, it's coming back, almost like if you was dead. So you can almost look at awakening as the devil fruit being dead, somewhat dead, and then the you're returning life to it to a degree, or in a sense, when we remember Luffy, and he fought Kaido, he pretty much died. Like Kaido killed Luffy, and then Luffy came back from death. His heart stopped, and then it came back, right? And then after returning to life, he awakened his devil fruit. So it would be weird that if like in order to awaken your devil fruit, you almost have to experience death to a degree. That could be a case. That could be a case of awakening devil fruit. So that would mean Doflamingo and Katakuri, they've pretty much been borderline dead, if that is the case. But I also see it like this when it comes to the connection between life return and awakening devil fruit. I look at like devil fruit awakening because you're awakening your devil fruit, right? I would think in order to awaken your devil fruit and gain full control of your devil fruit, like you can control, you can fully control. Because without awakening, you don't have full control of your devil fruit. Because awakening is like another level of devil fruit mastery, right? That's like when you fully have your devil fruit mastered. I would think in order to fully master your devil fruit, you would have to also fully master your own body, yourself, your being, right? Life return, it gives the user full mastery of their body. It gives them mastery of their body. You're able to manipulate a single strand of hair, right? Like you can manipulate and move it, where however you want. A single thread of hair. Now just imagine doing that to all of your hair, like Kumadori or the Boa sisters, right? Like they could manipulate all their hair, right? Or single parts of your body, you can manipulate them freely almost. I would think having that type of mastery over one's body would open the door to having mastery over one's devil fruit, therefore awakening. So that's kind of what I take from his theory. I mean, I could be, like Elid says a lot. So, sometimes, you know, you might have to watch his stuff multiple times to really get a full understanding of what he means, because you might have missed something. So I would say that life return and awakening are definitely two peas in the pie, right? Like they're very connected. Like in order to get to the awakening, you have to be able to use life return, because life return gives you that mastery over your body that is a prerequisite of having mastery over your devil fruit. But yeah, definitely let me know what you guys think down in the comments. But that is pretty much gonna be the video for today. Make sure you guys hit that like button. Also subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. Also, like I said before, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? What do you have to add that I might have missed? Let me know in the comments. Also, follow me on Twitch so you can engage with me in real time. And if you want to get at me directly, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and join the Discord. The Discord is probably going to be the best place to interact with me, because that's where I'm usually the most active. It is also, if you want to send me stuff to react to, if you want to send me content to react to, join the Discord. If you want to be part of a future discussion stream that I do, join the Discord. But yeah, that's all I got. It's your boy Sean P, the Blunt God, and I'm out of here. Peace.